Okay, so the next thing that we'll talk about is the Cori cycle. So the Cori cycle, to begin with, it's an inter-organ cycle involving the liver and skeletal muscle. So our scenario, just imagine a patient 12 hours fasting. So if they haven't consumed anything in the last 12 hours, we're going to say that 65 to 75% of the glucose synthesized is coming from glycogen. Everything else, just roughly 20% is coming from gluconeogenesis. So glycogen through the process of glycogenolysis or from gluconeogenesis. And we'll see later on when we start going through the absorption phase, fasting phase, starvation phase, that we're first going to depend on our glycogen stores in our liver and skeletal muscle. And then as more time passes and as this glycogen storage goes down, we're going to start using gluconeogenetic processes, from carbohydrates or from fatty acids that we've stored. But that's just to kind of lay the format. So again, we're talking, this is an inter-organ involvement. And what I'm going to display here is first just the liver cell. We'll have muscle cell. I have these little boxes right here. Hopefully this box will be big enough. I'm sure it will. So this again is in the scenario we don't have a lot of intake of glucose. We're going to start needing to rely on these gluconeogenetic processes. What's going to happen is in our muscle cell, we're going to have a bunch of lactate. And this lactate is going to be able to travel through our blood and get into our liver. Once lactate is in our liver, we'll be able to undergo our process of what's known as gluconeogenesis. We'll highlight this more in upcoming lectures. But essentially, we'll get G6P. And that's through the process of gluconeogenesis. And we need to put in, that's an arrow going in, 6 ATPs in order for that to happen. So we'll get our glucose 6-phosphate. The reason why I didn't just go straight to glucose, which I'll do over here, is because we have a special enzyme that catalyzes G6P going to glucose, and that is glucose 6-phosphatase. So again, glucose 6-phosphatase, only found in hepatocytes, is an enzyme that converts glucose 6-phosphate into glucose. And if we don't have that enzyme, we're not catalyzing that reaction. So this is why a lot of just phosphorylated or high energy stuff can't leave our cell. Once we get it in the form of glucose, our liver can then excrete out glucose and bring it all the way back into our muscle cell. And that'll give our muscle cell more ATP because we can undergo that, we can go under the process of glycolysis and we'll be able to get out 2 ATP. So overall, net, we're losing about -4 ATP, unfortunately. But, our muscle cell, he's over here happy because he gained 2 ATP. Our liver cell had to give up 6, but overall for the whole organism, we'd say that we benefit. So that's the Cori cycle in a nutshell. And one thing to keep in mind is the number of ATP per unit of glucose. So, and just glycolysis, we're going to say else 2, and aerobic processes, we're going to say that's 30. Using the Cori cycle, we're going to say we get about 12. That's a star. The Cori cycle, we're getting about 12 ATP per thing of glucose. Now, next thing that we're going to be talking about is creatine phosphate pathway. Let's change colors for this. Creatine phosphate system. Now, creatine phosphate, this is just another energy storage besides ATP that's found in our skeletal muscles. Imagine if we had, high levels of ATP in our muscle, we wouldn't be able to run through glycolysis, because high levels of ATP, and I'll just write this down, high levels of ATP is gonna inhibit PFK, right? And PFK, one of the main guys, main players, main allosteric enzymes in glycolysis. If he's not going, glycolysis isn't going. And we can't have glycolysis just not go. So we need to find another way to store a high amount of energy. And we do that using the creatine phosphate system. First, we'll start with creatine. And it's good to note that creatine is composed of two different amino acids, arginine and glycine. Anyway, we get creatine and put in ATP, get out an ADP, and we get creatine phosphate. I'm just going to put creatine P. And this is catalyzed through an enzyme known as creatine kinase. Creatine kinase. Some people say creatine phosphokinase. Some people just abbreviate CK. Some people CPK. Just, whatever you want to do. Anyway, so this is our storage of just, again, that high phosphorylated energy. When we need to use it, we'll be able to break apart that, and we'll get creatinine, so 2 N's, as well as that inorganic phosphate to process whatever needs to be processed. And just some thermodynamic values to keep in mind. This first process, this is going to take about plus 6.3 kilojoules per mole. So this one we have to put energy in, or this is an endothermic process, whereas creatine phosphate to creatinine, our Gibbs free energy is going to be negative 37.3. So that's slightly better than ATP, right? Which is negative 31. So anyway, what these thermodynamic values are just trying to say is right here we have to put in energy, and right over here we're expelling a lot of energy. And that's why creatine phosphate is such a great storage molecule in skeletal muscle for this. It helps to know we're going to have about 25 times more creatine phosphate than ATP. And once we get to creatinine, this is not useful to our cell. We're going to be able to export it into the blood, and it'll be excreted out from the kidneys. And creatinine is a good way to regulate just kidney function. In the glomeruli, there's something known as GFR, glomerular filtration rate, and this molecule is one of those molecules that can pass through that, as well as albumin, and that helps us monitor how well our kidney is filtering out things that it needs to. If we have an abnormal level of creatinine, we can either think like, whoa, either our kidneys working in overdrive, or we have a lot of skeletal muscle that's using a lot of creatine phosphate in order to create creatinine. Normal levels of creatinine for men, we're going to say it is 20 to 26 milligrams per kilogram, and women, I'm going to say that is 14 to 22 milligrams per kilogram. Cool. Well, I hope this helps, and let me know if you have any questions.